Hey everybody, that's right. We're not done. There is more to this list, and hopefully you're back with us to listen to part 3 of our Game of the Year feature chitty chat with some of the wonderful folks who've toughed this out with me. We have Caitlin 3 Podcast Argyros coming back.
Yes, this is my third podcast this weekend. I am podcast queen, I guess? I don't know.
You get the title for this weekend at the very least.
Yeah.
And I also have Peter Triesenberg coming back, our only panelist who has been on all 3 feature episodes aside from myself. So thank you, Peter, for sticking them out.
I mean, it was a close call because I literally just woke up, but thank you.
Yeah, we almost lost you to a nap. We almost lost you to your mom. But you squeaked by and managed to get on all 3 episodes. And then finally, John O'Logan has figured out all life scheduling conflicts, has made it back from his parents in the Scotia. John O'Logan, thanks for coming back on.
Thank you. I'm going to be totally lost. I missed the second part. I have no idea what's happening.
We are talking about the best parts of video games. So we've mostly gone through all the major category stuff, and we just dipped into the elements. If I was structuring things properly or wasn't such a panic to get through things, I probably should have just put all the elements in this episode, but whatever. So we're talking about all the nitty-gritty bitty parts that make up all of the 2019's best. So like our protagonists, the game elements of like sound and combat and stuff. So we wrapped up last episode talking about combat, and now we're moving on down the list.
Cool. Oh, this means that I don't get another opportunity to bitch about Romancing Saga 3, right?
Yeah, you might still have an opportunity because we might talk about fan favorite stuff at the very end of the episode. So,
oh, good.
But we did bring it up last episode, and we're like, well, it's a good thing John was not here because this would be a much longer discussion.
Wah.
Either way, so kicking things off here, we've got our best visuals. The winner was Indivisible. I wanted that game so badly. I still haven't got it yet, but Elena did our review and spoke highly of it, and the visual style just drew me right in immediately back when it was being teased and it was in development, and they've done everything with this incredible hand-drawn style. I don't see what isn't to love about the outstanding look of this game, and we've had a lot of great design work this year, so seeing something like this that they've put so much love into making all of the stylization all by hand, it's just it's fantastic. Have any of you 3 played Indivisible?
I haven't, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I haven't either. It looks cool, though.
I have not either.
Yeah, I think it was just Alana. I think we're all missing the boat on this one, unfortunately. But yeah, I agree with Peter. It looks cool, as I said. Peter, what has been attracting you to it?
I don't know. I just, like you said, Alana's review, a lot of the games that normally wouldn't be on my radar, I find out about from our reviews, and I think people's interest in them is so infectious that I kind of want to try them anyway. So I know Alana's review was really positive, and it was like, okay, I'm going to add that to my list, even though I really was not paying attention to this game before then. So,
well, exactly. Like Lab Zero just comes out and swinging with like this gorgeous game that also kind of feels like a Valkyrie profile in the way its kind of fighting style is.
Yeah, the combat kind of reminds me of Valkyrie profile,
which I have not played, but Caitlin, you have you not?
Oh, once a long time ago, and I never finished it, but I remember that kind of distinctive combat where you control individual characters with face buttons, and it's all kind of a side scroller kind of a graphic style. So this was way back in the day. This is back during the I rented video games from Blockbuster day, I think.
As we spoke of last episode, the best way to take a demo home. But Indivisible, like, it needs to have fluid animation for having such a high energy, I guess, combat. Like, there's a lot going on, and the fact that they hand drew all the models and all the animations to get such fluid, stunning motion. And I mean, it's the pedigree they come from too, having done something like Skullgirls, so they're clearly familiar with having nice, fluid looking combat with stunning visuals, and the whole game is just beautiful and vibrant as well. And it's great location details that it almost looks like a beat 'em up on like the arcade, but yeah, the elements that bring it into the RPG world make it a traditional RPG, and it just looks fantastic. Is this everyone on your radar, Jono?
Yeah, I love a good Metroidvania, and I certainly love one that looks like this. Beautiful. The character portraits are also gorgeous. it just looks like an amazing game.
It's on my 2020 backlog of I need to get to this because I'm sad I just didn't have the budget for it out the gate, and obviously with such a big backlog as it is, there was no point in getting into it. So sorely one that we've all missed, but it sounds like it's one we are all definitely interested in. But I know the next one, the runner-up, is just probably not worth bringing up if we just want to do right by Mike Solosi, and we can just move on. On to kidding. Our runner-up.
Okay, y'all. Mike's not here, so get ready. Okay, y'all. Nothing can save you now.
The next hour and 15 minutes will be devoted to Peter Triesenberg's thesis on why Kingdom Hearts 3 is great and explaining what it means that Aqua got Norded.
No, we already did a 2-hour podcast about that when the game came out.
But it has fantastic visuals. I mean, we all saw that in the teasers that were leading up to it. It's like just pulling right out of Disney, right out of everything, and like that's where they clearly showed so much of the polish and the effort that was put into the wait for this game. So, Peter, you dove in.
Mm-hmm. Sure did. I think apparently one of the reasons why it took so long for 3 to come out is because, like you mentioned, that attention to detail. They had to send every asset back to Disney for approval. Apparently,
that sounds about right.
Yeah, so like we're gone are the days when Kingdom Hearts was kind of the scrappy, weird. Well, two guys literally met in an elevator and were like, "Hey, we should collab," and then a video game was born. Now it's now you have these two multi-million-dollar corporations, and it's a major franchise all its own, and they have to get all these film rights sorted out. And apparently, it was just a big mess. But
as I can imagine,
nightmare.
yeah, for real. But like, so that there's reasons like why some of the Frozen stuff especially feels kind of scattered. I feel like it was because they literally were just told, no, you can't do that.
Well, yeah, because you're dealing with a lot of children's viewpoints of these films, and you can only do so much with the seriousness of the story and wrapping it into the heartless world, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where like some of the Kingdom Hearts worlds, they do a really good job of incorporating them into the universe, and like what they do with the Toy Story world is legitimately clever. But then there's cases like Frozen where we pretty much just follow the plot of the movie from the sidelines, and you do get to hear Let It Go in its entirety again. So enjoy.
At least it's performed well.
Yes, and they got the whole voice cast and everything,
which is impressive.
But no, like just back on visuals though, like just aside from just the detail in the environments, like there's a lot of love in just Sora's animations, his attacks, like the magic spells all interact with the environment. Like fire leaves behind a trail of scorched in terrain.
And it's like a notable upgrade from the PS2 era, obviously, not simply just because it's a more powerful machine, but like, yeah, they embellished everything more. And 2 was a great looking game too.
Yeah, definitely for its time, and three continues just like visually, it just excels. It looks really good.
And I think my favorite aspect of the Disney visuals, so to speak, is how they reinterpret Sora into each world. So like you said, like the cleverness of making him into a toy for Toy Story, and each of the different transformations. Like I loved, seeing him turn into a mer person, and becomes a lion too, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's in Kingdom Hearts 2, but yeah. They've done that. They've been. It's always fun seeing how they do that, and like he becomes he has a little monster form for Monsters Incorporated.
Right, exactly.
No, it changes color with the Keyblade transformation. So I got
rad.
I got the Ultima weapon, and I went to the Monsters Inc. world, and yeah, Sora's fur turns like white, and it's like it's cool. Like
that's neat.
It's little attention to detail.
That's pretty cool. And that's the other thing too, is like seeing the Keyblades, like those designs, and again, they're interpreting the world into this weapon design is really fascinating as well.
And the Keyblades can all transform and have all these different like varied attack patterns. You can have 3 equipped at one time now, so you get a lot of variety and visual flair in combat.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I can't talk Kingdom Hearts 3 up enough. Like I really enjoyed that game. The DLC's out in like 10 days as of this recording, and I'm just like freaking out.
How was the enemy design on this one? I mean, I don't remember there being a ton of variety back in the day. But there was with the interpreting, I guess, of the world stuff into the No Hearts, but
you get You get a lot of recycled Heartless designs, a lot of original Nobody designs. Basically, any organization member that didn't have one have their own designated Nobody class gets a new design, and they're pretty cool. And then each of the worlds have their own themed Heartless. So there's like reindeer and stuff in the
Right.
Frozen world. Tangled has a lot of like flower themed Heartless. The Big Hero 6 world is really fun because you're running around this big urban environment and all the enemies are like robots and stuff.
Oh, that would be pretty dope.
Mm-hmm. And did you has anyone else played Kingdom Hearts 3 on the show?
No, afraid not. I actually haven't played any of the Kingdom Hearts games.
Ooh.
I have only played Kingdom Hearts 1.
They've made it easier to catch up with now that they have like the collection, and this whole series is like bundled together on PSN.
Well, Max just picked it up for pretty cheap, and he's been going through it and talking about how it hasn't aged. That he's like, I think he said it's the least fun game he's had the most fun with. Like he's baffled by how much he's enjoying it, despite how clunky it is.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 1 is like the best bad game because like I love it a lot, but they've really improved on it in future iterations. But no, like one of the things they do for the Big Hero 6 world is the Baymax from the end of that movie gets turned, the one who was left behind gets turned into a Heartless. So they actually
twist.
They continue off of the plot of the movie in a really interesting way. That was one of the worlds where they actually kind of work it in to the main story. It was really cool.
That would be rad.
I'm surprised they haven't done more with that IP. I love that
Yeah, I
film.
am too.
I think there's going to be more of that. I'm fairly certain they are working on a sequel film.
That'd be
It better
good.
be.
Yeah, it was great, and it gets me right in the feels every single time. Jono, if you could adventure around in any Disney world, which would it be?
In any Disney world, honestly, the 100 Acre Wood.
Oh,
Oh,
I have some.
You're not
I
going
have
to
some-
let they did 100 Acre Wood in this game.
Probably not. I have some really solid memories of playing the Mini Adventures of Winnie the Pooh on Commodore 64 with my grandfather as a kid. Like one of the very early adventure games. Actually,
That is
the earliest
magical.
adventure game I ever played. So I have a real fondness for Winnie the Pooh.
and Caitlin, same question.
Any Disney World. This is kind of hard. Can it be from a cart? It doesn't have to be from a movie?
No, anything that Disney has done, like with its beloved characters, however.
I don't know. See, I'm trying to go through the catalog of movies that I've seen because I like my default is to say, "Oh, what the world of my favorite movie," but like I don't know that I necessarily want to be in that world.
Well, which one is that?
These days I usually think it's Tangled.
Why wouldn't you want to be in the world of Tangled?
Well, it's pretty and nice, but I don't know. We don't really see a whole lot of that world. We see a forest
It's true.
and a city. So
Yeah, and it's a lovely city.
It is a fun level.
I don't know. It's really hard for me to decide.
It's okay.
I'm not sure that I want to be in any of those worlds per se. I just like seeing them.
That's totally fair. But I do like your Tangled answer either way. So
I feel like Treasure Planet needs more love.
yeah, I would love to play around in Treasure Planet.
That was a
lot of
better
fun.
movie than people, I think, give it credit for.
Right?
Yeah, no, like it bombed horribly, but like it's a great. I think it's a really underrated Disney movie.
Yeah, it did a fantastic job, in my opinion, of interpreting that into its sci-fi world. It was super fun romp. It's, I think, one of the last films with Tony Jay on it, too, who did the narrating, and I love Tony Jay's voice so much. I miss his voice work.
Disney, if you're gonna remake stuff that actually could use a second chance.
Ooh, that'd actually be cool, seeing a live-action version of that. I feel like that would translate very well into the Disney physical stuff they're doing these days.
Yeah, I mean, they got the Star Wars license. Just do Star Wars, but with pirates, more pirate stuff.
Atlantis would also be a good option for a live action remake.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And did Atlantis get a world?
No, they haven't done that yet.
That's one I would love to see. It's one of my favorite low-key movies as well
Yeah.
in Disney, and I think that's a world I would love to be around in, the whole cool steampunky kind of vibe.
I know everyone wants them to do Star Wars and Avengers, but I don't see that happening. I think those IPs might be too valuable. Plus, they have more other companies that are all tied up in that.
It would get really muddled, it seems like.
Yeah. No, thank you.
If you do a Star Wars level in Kingdom Hearts, does that mean EA has to be involved somehow? because they have like exclusive video game rights, and like suddenly we're going down a pretty deep rabbit hole.
It'd just be really funny if you get to like the entrance to that world, and then suddenly it comes up that like you need to go to like the origin store to buy it, and then you can't get access.
Oh God, I think this is my nightmare.
Well, on that note, this is where we've gotten to. I think it's time to move on to the next category, but both of these games do look absolutely gorgeous. And if you're one of those people that just play these games for looks, you're not going to go wrong with either of these.
Actually, can I say something about Kingdom Hearts 3?
No, of course you can.
No, despite the fact that I haven't played it, but I'm a huge music theater nerd. So out of curiosity, I watched a side by side of Let It Go with the actual film and the graphics from Kingdom Hearts 3, and they did a ridiculously amazing job of it. Looks damn near perfect, except it's done in engine, and I think that's very impressive for the developers.
It is pretty impressive. Oh yeah, I'm not sure 100% sure it was like necessary to include the whole song again, but like it is for as far as like imitating the movie's style, they do a pretty solid job.
I'm pretty sure that if Disney had the opportunity, they would put Let It Go in every piece of media they release.
God, I was surprised there wasn't really a reprise of it in Frozen 2.
Honestly, put it in Rise of Skywalker. Could it make it any worse?
No, not really.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know if you want to ask that question, because that's a whole other conversation.
It would be. And to get us back on there, how does the team at Final Fantasy XIV keep finding quality people to keep making every part of that game so quality? That's the segue I'm going with, but whatever. We're turning this podcast back on track with our best music and or sound design. And Shadowbringers was the winner. And Caitlin, you wrote about that one. But just to step back for a second, like that game sounds great in every aspect, both from the sound design and the music. And I mean, you've all been extolling the virtues of the music for years since it launched. But it is, again, it's nice to listen to. It's very satisfying. It's sound effect roster as well, with so many spells and the voice work, the footsteps, attacks, all that stuff. Like the game is beautifully crafted from the ground up to make the whole world very cohesive and sound fantastic.
Well, yes, I concur. I will admit that I voted for it for music more than sound design. Not that the sound design isn't good in the game, but just because usually with this category, my criteria is always about soundtrack more than sound design. So that's why I voted, and I'd imagine the vast majority of people were voting for it based on the soundtrack,
well, of course,
which it absolutely deserves to win purely on that alone.
And music would always overshadow, and it's always hard to think of. It's why it's almost like needs two separate categories. But anyways, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, go off.
I think we talked about that at one point, and I think we put it into one category because we were concerned about how many people are paying close enough attention to the sound design to really be able to feel comfortable voting for sound design if it were a category separate from music. I think we figured it would be easier to have them as one category, because that way, you may not necessarily always be paying attention to sound effects and things like that, but you're probably listening to music, and that can make it easier to make a decision about what game should win that award. So
it's valid, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Shadowbringers, I keep saying, my bar was always Heavensward, and Shadowbringers certainly exceeds that, and it's the same is true for the music. Like, just like with the game itself, I didn't really think that the music in Stormblood reached the sort of the high peak that Silken brought it to in Heavensward, but Shadowbringers really kind of brought it back to that same level. And there's some fantastic music on here. The main theme itself, well, it's a kick-ass main theme. If you've seen the trailer, the full trailer, CG trailer before Shadowbringers launched, that's the main theme, and it's appropriately just titled Shadowbringers.
That trailer is amazing. Total
it's
aside, like
an awesome trailer. Yeah, I love it.
Like I've been showing it to people. Yeah, no, I've been showing it to people like out of context. Just be like, no, you have to watch this.
Yeah. But it's interesting too, because this is the first main theme for an expansion that hasn't featured a song sung by Susan Calloway or composed by Nobuo Uematsu. So it's kind of an interesting departure, and yet it still manages to it's a great addition that still manages to be up there with the previous main theme vocal songs from the previous expansions. And, in true form, it gets used as sort of the basis for all the different, various different themes throughout the game. So variations on that main vocal theme are used for like the boss battles and dungeons. That's used in some cutscene music, used in various different ways. One of my favorite tracks in the entire game, all of the expansions up to date, is version of that theme that's used in some of the action sequences in the game, where you go into a single player instance and you deal with some combat situations and whatnot. It's a really good kind of upbeat version of that theme. So and that's something that Soken has always been really good at, is taking a theme and using it in different ways for different purposes in combat, in cutscenes, as the main theme of the expansion. So he's just really good at that, and this is kind of like, this is peak Soken. Doesn't mean that he can't, exceed this in a future expansion. I very, much am looking forward to that, but he's for what he does in Final Fantasy XIV, he is like at the top of his form, and I cannot wait to see more from him. And I would always love for him to do, like single player games or other RPGs. I very much look forward to that once 14 is done, though, because he does a lot of work.
Yeah, no kidding.
For 14. I would not want him to do something else in addition to this unless he felt he could handle it, because like the amount of work, the amount of tracks that he has to either compose or arrange or both, even just on a patch basis is it's staggering.
Yeah, there's so much music to consume in the amount of albums that get released. Even when Shadowbringers was released, I remember you chomping at the bit to get the soundtrack for it, because that came a few months later, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, it stands to reason that, you'd be backing this horse, of course.
Yeah, we actually got the soundtrack sooner than I was expecting. That was amazing. It did come out like just a few months after the main patch was released. So that was good, because having to wait for months on end for the soundtrack sometimes is very painful.
Waiting is painful in general, but patience is a virtue, as they say. Do you find the soundtrack stands on its own out of context very well?
Oh yeah, I would say so. I tend to find a lot of soundtracks tend to stand up on their own outside of the context of the game. There's just so much music here too. So like even if some of the tracks don't necessarily work for you out of the context, there's so much to so many other tracks to listen to that I would imagine, even if you've never played Final Fantasy XIV, or even if you've never played a Final Fantasy, that someone could listen to this soundtrack and find a lot that they would love about it. And maybe, I would love to hear stories of people who didn't play 14 and then listened to the soundtrack and were like, I need me more of that, and started playing the game, because that would just be amazing.
Right. And yeah. No, exactly. Peter, for yourself, does the music from Shadowbringers, I guess Final Fantasy XIV overall, but specifically, have you gotten to do Shadowbringers yet to be able to consume the music, or have you just done it on the side?
No, I'm nowhere close. I have listened to the music a lot. And yeah, they've done a really good job, especially like I said, that main theme is really, really good. One of the main boss themes has been really is really sweet. I've been listening to that one a lot. In general, 14's music, they just do a really fantastic job with it. And
it's clearly maintained the consistency, which is fantastic. And John, we haven't talked much about, I know you're a big musical theater nerd, but are you a big video game music nerd outside of your gaming?
Yeah, I have quite a few soundtracks on my iPhone. I tend to... This is a game that I kind of want to play, but I almost avoid because I'm terrified of it, because it's so big, and I know if I start playing... Like, every single time I hear about the graphics, or hear the music, or hear Caitlin talk about it at length, I just want to play it so bad. But I feel like if I ever did, there's my year, if not more.
That's exactly where I'm at, and I'm just waiting for the time that I can commit to it.
There are probably worse ways to spend your year, but...
You'll definitely miss out on every other game.
It looks like an astoundingly good experience, great experience. From what I've seen and from what I have heard, it just... And again, from what I've heard Caitlin say and write about it, it seems to bring together everything amazing about Final Fantasy in one package, like the entire history, and that's a very tempting thing to see.
And apparently here. So if you haven't listened to Shadowbringers soundtrack, go do that. We talked about Cadence of Hyrule earlier in the unconventional RPG section. It was our runner-up there, and the biggest thing we spoke about was the fact that its music was outstanding, and that's basically what that game is about. So I am very happy to see that everybody agreed that it deserved a mention. And yeah, as Jonna, you were saying, like, Danny Baranowski got so many of the best tracks from the series together, and then some, and did some amazing mixes on them. And out of context, all this music works. I mean, if you're a fan of the series, you're going to know all of it, and you're just going to enjoy jamming out to it for sure.
Yeah, I have the soundtrack on my phone. And
Speaking of,
yeah, it's fantastic. It's pulse pounding, which is literally what the game is about. Like this is an instance where I will go to bat about Cadence of Hyrule and the quality of the music and everything, but I actually agree with the runners up positioning here, because all of the music in this game, they're brilliant remixes, they're brilliant mashups, but there's not a whole lot of completely original work here. It's brilliant reinterpretations of stuff that has already existed for literally decades, whereas Shadowbringers, as I understand it, is original, and and is brilliant. So yeah,
that's a very important distinction for sure.
Yes, it is. And that's not saying that the music in Cadence of Hyrule is not amazing, because it is. Not the least of which is, like, it's so integrated into the gameplay. And that is the gameplay. That's Necrodancer. If the music wasn't that good, no one would want to play the game.
Absolutely.
And not only, like, the game would not be as much fun as it is. But the amazing thing about Cadence of Hyrule is just how much music is in the game. It's not just, there are all the remixes of the Overworld and Hyrule Castle, and the Dark World theme is especially amazing. But there's also a peaceful version of all of those themes. So whenever you kill all the enemies, a much more peaceful version comes on the screen, and then you can kind of move everywhere freely without having to move on the beat. So there are two versions of every single song in the game. It's just a truly jaw-dropping. Like, I'm looking at the soundtrack here. Let's see here. So 62 tracks on the first disc, and so it's 132 songs. 5 hours, 4
so
minutes.
Much music, and I have cleaned my house many a time to that soundtrack. It's great for getting stuff done.
That sounds like a great music for that. You just like kind of bounce along with it as you're sweeping the floors or wiping the countertops.
Well, exactly.
I'm usually certain that if I did that, I'd break something.
You would break down. Anyways, that's terrible. I know, Caitlin, you're not a huge fan of the series, as you've said, but like the music, have you listened to the soundtrack at all?
I have not.
You're doing a disservice to yourself. It's
I
so
know.
good.
I need to check it out.
Have you listened to much of the music from the series, even if like you haven't indulged in the games as much?
I mean, I know like some of the main themes, and I'm familiar with some of the music I've heard from a couple of the Zelda games that I have played, but I'm not like extensively.
Well-versed.
I'm not extensively, well versed in the music of the series.
So you mean Zelda, not Necrodancer?
Zelda. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes.
No, you said you aren't.
I have no background in Necrodancer. I didn't even know that Necrodancer was a thing until this was announced.
It's also got stellar music, that's for sure, which makes sense that they brought it forward into this. And Peter, you spoke highly of the music too when we talked about this game earlier.
Yeah, no, it's got a really good soundtrack, as you would expect.
Oh, exactly. It's necessary. But like John said, the important distinction is it's not a lot that's original, which makes sense for why it wouldn't be our winner, but it also has such quality production value. And again, do the sound effects stand out to you in any way, John? Or does that all feed into the rhythm of the gameplay?
A little bit, not any more than the usual Legend of Zelda sound design. Everything sounds good, but nothing particularly made me go, "Holy, that is something else."
It wasn't like made to like also contribute to the music, so to speak.
That's an interesting. I recently played it because I just added a section to the review for the DLC that just came out. No, I don't think so. I mean, things are
Okay.
still in time with the music. For example, when you fire an arrow, it has to be in time with the music. If the bombs explode based on the rhythm, that kind of thing. But it's not like a integral part of the game.
And it's not like they have, like the bomb doesn't blow up in a staccato burst that feeds into the rhythm. It would be really neat if they did that. But obviously everything's going to still be pretty rhythmic given the nature of how you're supposed to be attacking and executing everything. So,
Yeah, it's a great game. If you love Legend of Zelda, play it because it's a Legend of Zelda game. It's a really, really good mashup of both Necrodancer. If you love Necrodancer, you're going to love this. If you love Legend of Zelda, you're going to love this because it looks like a classic 2D Legend of Zelda game, and in fact, it plays an awful lot like one, except with a randomizing element.
which is, what that game, people loved about that when they played Link Between Worlds, so.
Yeah, I mean, the Legend of Zelda randomizers are the current hotness, so I think that probably somebody at Nintendo was paying attention and said we should do that with a
No
game.
kidding.
Yeah, and they did, and I think it was a big success. I'm kind of excited to see if they keep doing these little experiments with some of their IPs, because I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice that they're kind of letting the reins loose a bit. So we got 2 fantastic soundtracks for anyone to go listen to, whether you've played the game or not. But moving forward, we're talking about story in this next thing, which is what a lot of us come to RPGs for, right? And sometimes, you get a game like Monster Hunter where you're in it for the combat, you're in it to hunt things, and some of our games of yore have had very thin stories. Even Pokemon series has never been much for that. You're in it just to catch monsters. But by and large, you're playing an RPG because you want to invest in a really great story with fantastic character development. And the winner was Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is no stranger to either of those categories, since the entire thing is forged around making relationships and then spans like years of those relationships and where they get to. And as Peter was saying in the first part of this, it's just the story is so interesting because you get to such a point where you've got to know all these characters so well, and then eventually you get to a point where you kind of have to not necessarily turn on each other, but just the circumstances necessitate that you have to fight one another, and it's just like, but I love them. Peter is the only one I think here who has finished the game, so you can speak more to how the story unfolds, at least for the Black Eagles, because I don't think you've played the other houses yet, have you?
No, I haven't played the other ones yet. Although I do know some of the details of what happens in the other routes. Yeah, no, I can't speak highly of Three Houses' story enough. They do a really good job of putting you in the middle of this conflict where you've gotten to know and care about all the parties involved, and it makes choosing a side really difficult because even though you pick a house at the start of your route, you'll get to know the other students and you can recruit some of them onto your cause. And once war inevitably breaks out among them, it's one of the few games I've seen that tackles like gray morality in a really interesting way. Like a lot of the characters have like goals that are like have lofty ideals behind them, but are going to require them to commit some pretty heinous acts by the game's end.
Well, and I remember
it's compelling,
which is fantastic. And I remember Nathan even saying too in his review that there's even points where you find sympathy for the villain as well. There's a bit of a gray area there. So it's great that they don't just paint it all in, you're bad, you're good, let's go be heroes and save the world.
Yeah, right. No, it's definitely, it's a change of pace for sure. And I think a good one. It fits that fantasy motif really well.
Yeah, and it's the reason I'm excited to get back to it as well. Our runner-up was Disco Elysium, which, again, none of us here have played. I don't think... Have you played it, Caitlin? We spoke about it on the part 1, but we didn't talk about it on part 2, I don't think.
I haven't, although I have to say, everything I've read about this makes me want to check it out. It was not on my radar at all.
This was not on your radar, but like what put it on your radar?
Well, reading our coverage of it, and then also, I believe, didn't it win... It won an award at the Game Awards, right?
Yeah, Best Indie.
Yeah, so like that, I mean, like, I don't know, Game Awards, it's not like I plan my gaming calendar around what wins at the Game Awards, but for something like that where I didn't even know what it was, because, a lot of times the Game Awards feel like the games that win are the big popular ones. They're the ones that have a lot of word of mouth, at least, if not the big AAA titles. So...
The Death Stranding award for outstanding excellence in being Death Stranding. Also, Jeff Keighley's in the game. Isn't this unethical?
Yeah. So, like, I mean, that kind of perked my ears up about it, and then I forget. I think I checked out our review for it, and was kind of like, this sounds really interesting. So,
one, it seems so rooted in its story that like that would have to be so on point and so well constructed to engross players, because it wouldn't have anything else going for it, because that's the entire thing. But at any rate, it's the lead designer is Robert Kurbitz, who's a novelist as well. So it makes sense that the writing's going to be getting such a great focus as well.
I haven't heard a single bad thing about this game. I really want to play it too. It just sounds like a really amazing experience.
If we're at a place where you can have an experience with a game as opposed to just feeling like, I've played a thing, like being affected by it is something to look forward to. But best localization is the next category, which can be very hit or miss. We can have things like, what was it, East 9? Was that the one that had issues?
East 8.
Yeah, you can have issues like what happened with East 8, and even going so back as the early days of the SNES when Ted Woolsey had to do everything by himself. And stuff got missed and got truncated and whatever. But we've come to such a place where there's much better focus put on it. And it's something I've become much more aware of, chiefly because of knowing Derek Heemsberg and Steven Meyerink, for that being their whole job trajectory. It's made me more aware of how much that matters in games as well. And with something like Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers winning, it must have done such an outstanding job of keeping all of its various threads and storylines and characters and everything to such a degree of quality, which it would have to keep maintaining that story and make it believable and not take people out of it. Because like it's so quick for me to jump out of something when I see a spelling error or a context error or whatever, right? So, I mean, again, Kaylee, you're the most proficient with the game. I'm sure you can speak to how well handled the localization is.
Yeah, I think that Final Fantasy XIV, like, just not even Shadowbringers, I think the entire game has done a fantastic job with its localization, because not only because it's a huge mountain of text to be translating and localizing for an MMO, but also because of the flavor that they add into it. I mean, like this is a game that is set in a world that is, I mean, they have airships, and there's a country that has more like modern style technology, but it's a fantasy game. It's not an industrial fantasy. It is a magic and crystals kind of fantasy. So it always has had a bit more of a not Shakespearean, but a bit more of an old kind of English style to it. Especially some characters talk in a much more like fancy and flowery style of speech, like our beloved Urianger, who has lots of thous and these and wouldsts and things like that.
Very old English.
Yeah, and it's really good at creating a setting. It's more than just necessarily the names of the places and the words and the specifics of like how this world works. It's also about how the text is presented, and the text in 14 has always done a good job of kind of selling, just by its style, the kind of world it's supposed to be. Like it would be weird if we had this sort of traditional fantasy world and everyone spoke in like purely modern English and used modern slang and things like that. That would take you out of the experience a little bit. And 14 does a good job of putting you in the experience just through its text. And then we can't talk about the localization without bringing up the fact that the quest names in 14 are, especially the side quests, are usually some of the best puns that you're going to see in an RPG in terms of like quest names. Yeah, like Koji Fox he's the pun king. He loves to put the puns in. And there's been lots of times where I've gotten a quest and I've been like, oh hey. Like, there are several quests that are directly, like, Hamilton references that I was like, yes.
Oh, wow.
I like this. So, I just, any game that can make you chuckle because of the puns in the text and the quest names, I think, is on to something good. So,
exactly. And Jono has just purchased the game with that musical reference.
I was thinking about it, yeah. Like I said, when Caitlin talks about this game, I'm like, oh.
It's hard not to be infected.
Don't throw away your shot, dude.
Well, now I'm just torn between that and Trails, so.
Both? Get both. Why not both? Why not both .gif?
There we go. Yeah, you got it.
4K.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you said yourself, Peter, you're not here yet, but so far as you've been playing, obviously the quality has been maintained through the localization. I'm guessing.
No. Yeah, the writing in 14 is off the charts. Like, it's another one. It's one of those things where, like, they've elevated their genre almost, I feel, like, above the rest of the Final Fantasy series even. They've done some really incredible work with 14.
It's definitely on a world on its own.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to play more of it. Like, it's just they really do a great job of making Eorzea feel like a place with, like, history that, like, and its inhabitants feel and with a history and inhabitants you're interacting with and going on adventures with.
And
It's good. It's very good.
It's good. It's good localization. Go read some Final Fantasy 14. Speaking of reading, something we've been, I guess, reading for generations is the very particular localization that has been put into Dragon Quest for years. It's very on-the-nose Britishisms of trying to make the text read as a British accent or a Scottish accent and such. And that has not gone away in Dragon Quest Builders 2. They have always done such a fantastic job of phonetically bringing regional, stereotypical British dialects to life. And, I mean, I've only played a handful of Dragon Quest games, so I can't speak to it as much as others possibly here. But I've always delighted in just their commitment to that shtick.
Is it at all weird that, like, I'm not, I haven't really played a lot of Dragon Quest. I've chucked through, like, I don't know, maybe a third of Dragon Quest 8 on 3DS, and I have not played 11 yet, but is it weird that, like, I'm almost more interested in playing the game just for the localization and to see how they, you know, I remember reading the descriptions of the text in 11 and how they had all the different accents and how it was brilliant, and I was like, that sounds cool. Is it weird that kind of attracts me more than maybe necessarily the game itself sometimes?
I don't think so at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. I feel like that's, again, it's part and parcel with the charm of it. Like, if you're getting... There's a bunch of things that make Dragon Quest good for what it is. Like, you absolutely know what you're getting with that series. And even with Dragon Quest Builders and Builders 2, where they've shaken up their genre slightly and slapped it over basically a paint job onto Minecraft, but integrated it into their world so beautifully, like, you're going to get more of that. So you're going to get, again, that shtick of the accents and the localization, and you're going to get the same tired soundtrack, and you're going to get all the ridiculous names also that the localization team has given to the spells. As Peter was saying, you know, even the hero gets them in Smash, and, like, you get, you know, like Frazzle, is that one of the ones where you get, I can't remember. Yeah. Like, they just have such ridiculous names. When I was playing through
Zoom,
yeah, Dragon Quest 9 was the first one I played, and when I started reading these abilities and spells, and I'm like, what? And then all the different puns that come with that as well, and the puns and the quests.
They have so much fun with the enemy names,
right?
Too.
And, like, it's, yeah, the whole game just has such a style to it.
What is it? There's I think it's a slime knight that's, like, got multiple slimes stacked on top of each other, and the name of it was a one night stand. Like, it's just stuff like that. It's just like
I just need to, like, have fun. Slow clap on that one, which I won't because it just won't translate. But just that deserves a slow clap. That's impressive.
Yeah, the localization team for Dragon Quest has done really good work, and pretty much, I mean, ever since I think 8 was one of the first games in the series to really have that style, but ever since then they've just hit it out of the park with every game.
They just seem to have so much fun with it, and that's the important part.
Yeah, absolutely. Caitlin, play 11, it's good.
I know. I actually, true story, I got 11 for Christmas in it was 2018, I think it was Christmas 2018. And I had not opened it, and I have sold it without playing it, but I sold it because I knew that if I ever got around to playing it, I would want to play the Switch version.
You've made good
because
choices.
of the
Yeah,
the
no, I feel you on
extra
that one.
content and the no longer MIDI soundtrack, please.
Yeah, exactly.
So I knew like if I
Oh.
was actually going to play it, I wouldn't play it on PS4.
Yeah, it's the definitive
That
edition. So why
alone
wouldn't
is
you?
worth getting.
Yeah. So I had it, and I'm sorry I never played it. I just never got around to it. But when I do get around to it, I will play it on Switch.
It was a happy accident.
It's okay. It happens. But yeah, no, it's definitely worth it.
Meanwhile, you've probably repurchased Final Fantasy 12 on the Switch again.
Actually, I haven't yet. I'm bad. I know. What kind of... I'm a fake. I'm not a real Final Fantasy 12 fan. I don't even own the game on every system that's available. I also don't own it on PC. What's wrong with me?
I'm going to take the Stan Final Fantasy 12 out of your name
I think
now.
I need you to take my title of biggest Final Fantasy 12 fan at RPGFan away from me now.
Let me just check how many copies of Final Fantasy X I have. 1 second.
So the next hour of the podcast will be devoted to Peter counting his cop. No, I'm kidding. The next...
The answer is 4.
That's
4.
not as bad.
Ah ha ha.
Just 4.
Oh, dear. Yeah, John, have you played any of the Dragon Quest? I mean, being a theater nerd, I feel like this stuff... I think you talked about that in the first one.
Yeah, I haven't played I haven't played either of the Builders games.
No.
Just because Builders Minecraft style games have never really appealed to me. They look interesting. I love the idea that the first Builders was set in a parallel universe where I think it was the hero lost in the first game.
Yeah, that was really neat.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dragon Quest. I played through the series. I can't believe I'm about to do this again. I rented Dragon Quest 4 at Abercrombie Video when I was a kid.
Yeah, everyone take a shot.
I rented it when I was a kid, and I mean, I had no idea what was going on, but I loved it. And then years later, when the first 2 came out in that amazing 2-pack for Game Boy Color, I played through them, and then 3, and then continuing on from there. They're great games. I have not played Builders 2, but one thing I do love about Dragon Quest is the fact that it's like there are certain things that carry through Final Fantasy, like the victory theme, things like that.
SIDS.
Yeah, exactly. But with Dragon Quest, the continuity between the games and just what they have held on to from all the way from the original it's admirable and absurd at the same time.
It's so stuck up its own place, but at the same time,
yeah, because if you don't know what you're getting into and you're fighting and you just hear the doo-doo-doo at the end and you're like, whoa, what the heck was that? You won't understand. But if you know the history of it, you're like, oh, I recognize that. That's a callback to everyone in the past. And I mean, you're right. Everyone's right about this. The localization of Dragon Quest is very, very special. And from what I have seen, Builders 2 carries on with that tradition.
Yeah, it's definitely like the safest RPG ever. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what you're getting with your peanut butter and jelly Dragon Quest.
At some point in the future, they will break, I'm sure. At some point, they'll try something a little bit daring, and we'll see where it goes from there. I mean...
Well, that's how we get this kind of stuff. Like, there's Dragon Quest Monsters. It's the spin-offs they do it, right? It's the mainline series that they keep pretty safe, and then they try things like Dragon Quest Builders, and it worked. Dragon Quest Monsters didn't have so much, and like didn't they have like a card game? So I don't know. Anyways, they do spin-off series, and that's where they explore.
We are getting another Dragon Quest Monsters for Switch at some point.
Oh,
it's been a while since we heard anything about it, but it's they announced it a while. I think early last year. It's apparently gonna star Eric from Dragon Quest XI.
Oh,
so I'm in for him and his crazy Christian Bale accent.
It was surprisingly fun.
And apparently we're getting a spiritual Dragon Quest sequel later this year with Yakuza Like a Dragon, which will be fascinating.
Yes.
I am very much intrigued.
I want it.
I don't.
Actually, that comes out this week, doesn't it?
Yeah, in Japan. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why there's been so much news lately. It's because the buildup has been going on in Japan.
God.
Yeah, it's going to break, and then it won't. It's been overwhelming, and I've been loving every second of it. But at the same time, it's like, God. But it's
literally we haven't been able to keep up. like just speaking on behalf of our poor news staff in Japan, Yakuza 7, please relax.
Hopefully, it will soon. For
Peter's sake. Calm down, Yakuza Japan, I guess. Whatever the company is. I don't know. Any rate, we've got 4 more categories to go.
Let's go.
Moving on to our best protagonist was...
Mr.
I want to
Thomas
just
Yakuza.
take, like... I just want to be a jerk and say it completely wrong, but I can't anyways. It's Reen Schwartzer, correct?
Schwarzer, yeah.
Schwarzer. Oh, maybe I'm overpronunciating. Any rate, from The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 3, which was a big fan favorite for a lot of people here. Why is Reen so neato, Caitlin?
Well, and this is... I had to be delicate about this because the Trails fandom has some very particular opinions about Trails protagonists, and Reen is usually actually not at the top of their favorite list, but I really like him, and I think he deserves this award because he's grown a lot. This is the game where Reen kind of comes into his own. Like, he's a student in the first two games, and your mileage is going to vary based on how much that sort of... He's a decent guy. He's kind of an everyman. He is liked by everybody. He's a good leader. He's special. How much, that kind of jives with you, or if that's maybe a little too anime for you. And, I mean, he's still liked by everybody and is special and is a good guy in Cold Steel 3. But I think that he works so much better as a teacher, which is what he does in Cold Steel 3, than he does as a student. And I like him personally as a student, but I think that being a teacher is kind of what he was meant to be as a character and as an arc, and you get to sort of see him grow into that. And it's not that he starts off at the beginning game and he's brilliant. He still stumbles and has to learn his way around teaching his students and whatnot, but he does, and it's great to see him kind of develop like that. And he's just like, he's a good guy. Like, he's a decent person. He wants to do the right thing. He's got this weird power that he doesn't know what it is, and he can't quite control it. And there are, reasons and plot developments that, when you play the game, and you'll kind of see more about that. And we will, obviously, there's another game, so there's more to learn about that. But he's a decent guy. And it also really helps for the Western audience that Sean Chiplock does such a fantastic job voicing him. Like, holy crap. I think this is the first game where I think it may not be the first game where he voiced a character that I played, but it's the first game where I took notice of his voice acting. That is the original Cold Steel, the first game that he started voicing Reen in. And he's just done a, super bang up job every game, and, is now like one of my favorite voice actors because of his portrayal of Reen. So like, it's just, he's a good character, and Cold Steel 3 is him kind of growing up a little bit, coming into his own, and making his mark. So I'm happy that he won this award, and I look forward to seeing what happens in the future. Hopefully we find out this year. Please, Nisa, please.
So he was just introduced in Trails of Cold Steel. He's not from any other Sky Arcs. Okay, cool. Was he in the Crossbell stuff at all?
He is. He himself is not mentioned in any game prior to Cold Steel. The Class 7 gets mentioned briefly in the Crossbell arc as a general concept.
They exist.
But, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, our runner-up was... actually, no, I should speak that first. It's nice that they didn't just go all, well, he's a good guy, so let's just make him good for the sake of being good. I'm glad he has some mystery and some growth still to work through, and it's neat that if you stick through the entire arc, that you get to see him grow into his own, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the nice things about the Trails series in general is that every set of new characters and stories is not just one game, it's an arc. Even, it's 3 games, 2 games, 4 games. Maybe they're going to... I was about to say maybe they're going to try and outdo themselves and have a 5-game arc for the next arc, but I think they're shooting to do smaller arcs going forward and not mega 4-game arcs. But that's definitely one of the advantages of a long-running series like this, where all the games are in the same universe and characters show up throughout multiple arcs, and there are actual arcs, multi-game arcs. You have that much more space and time to let characters grow and kind of become, interesting just within their own little story arc.
Which is, yeah, and I mean, that's one thing, like, you'll get something like Final Fantasy where it stands on its own, and then you have to see these characters grow from start to finish, maybe, and sometimes it's better executed than not, in any other standalone game. So it's really neat to see a character go from game 1 through game 2 to game 3 and watch that entire journey with them is really fascinating, because we don't get that in a lot of series. They usually come up with a new cast at some point.
Yeah, so it's good.
Well, moving over to our runner-up, someone I can't really speak much to, but we gave it over to Miriam from Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. John, what characterizes a good Castlevania protagonist to you? Like, what sticks out in your mind to be the Castlevania protagonist?
Well, in this particular case, unfortunately, I can't speak to Bloodstained because, again, on my backlist, But
I more just meant your history with Castlevania. I think you're one of the best versed here with it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's the traditional, hey, look, there's a whip. And I mean, this game kind of pays homage with that. And certainly Curse of the Moon does, which is another game that looks amazing. I'm just reading Alana's little description here. I love her little mention that the character becomes giddy when she learns how to take photographs for the first time.
Well, yeah, this sounds more personable than what I remember a lot of Castlevania characters being.
Yeah, the Belmonts tend to be a very serious sort.
Stoic, yeah.
Stoic, unless you're talking about the old Captain N cartoon,
right? Or even the recent Netflix series. Things get a little more indulgent there because they have room to do with it. But obviously, traditionally, Castlevanias haven't been very high on their character design. Character development in terms of the actual character's personality. It's just been about, hey, there's a vampire, I should go kill it. And that's largely it. I have a vendetta against Dracula because that's what the booklet says. And it's up for the players to instill that with whatever. It wasn't, I think, until like probably the GBA ones and stuff that we started getting more development into it.
Yeah, they started introducing more RPG elements and RPG style character development into it.
Yeah, and then we get lines like, what is a man? But the up until now, like probably one of the
greatest localization of all time.
And isn't that one of the most standout Castlevanias in the entire series too, though?
Symphony of the Night? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this game is a spiritual sequel to Symphony of the Night. I'm going to be very interested to see where they go from here because it looks like they've laid a really interesting foundation for future games,
which we spoke to in the first episode. Yeah. Yeah,
it's not just that; it's also they have a lot of different areas they can explore. I mean, Curse of the Moon looks like a classic 8-bit Castlevania game. This looks like a very polished style, like PlayStation 2 style. No, sorry, not PlayStation 2 style. PlayStation 2 had terrible Castlevania games.
I was gonna say maybe we'll get like a proper Castlevania 64.
I would be interested to see where that would go. Yeah, but I mean,
either way,
it's a new start for Castlevania type games, free of the constraints that are put on that particular series.
Mm-hmm. And Miriam leading it and her very interesting curse that feeds into her powers and such seems to be a very compelling protagonist to carry the whole series. And I love the way that even though Miriam is Miriam and she's defined as the leading character of the series, you can still change her hairstyle, hair color, skin color to make Miriam your own.
That's some role-playing right there.
Well, exactly. And players can see themselves a lot easier in the role, which is an important part of these games and why so many of us are drawn to many of these titles if we can see ourselves in them, and especially the ones where we can actually fully customize our characters.
Mm-hmm. I agree entirely. It's a game that I have, again, like right at the top of my list.
Well, we'll see what you get to by the end of January.
Yeah, I'll come on random and talk about it briefly because I mean it's an older game, but I'll mention what I think when I play it.
Right. Well, something that we know more about again. Thanks to Caitlin, is our Best Supporting Character category winner, which is, I'm probably going to say this terribly, is Emmett Selch? Or is it Emmett Selch?
Emmett Selch.
Okay, Emmett Selch from Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. And, he's a supporting character. Is he a good supporting character or a bad supporting character? Who is Emmett Selch?
He is a villain, technically. But he's a little bit interesting because he's introduced at the end of Stormblood. And through somewhat mysterious circumstances, you're never 100% quite sure what his deal is. Basically, he's an Ascian, and the Ascians are the big bad guys in 14. They are these mysterious body-hopping individuals who worship possibly the deity. We don't know, it's shrouded in kind of mystery up until Shadowbringers, but they worship this deity called Zodiark, who is of course familiar to Final Fantasy fans, and they are apparently attempting to sow chaos and destruction in the world in order to bring him back. And this is all based on the original lore of the game, in which Zodiark and Hydaelyn, who is the Mother Crystal and the sort of patron deity for our character, for the Warrior of Light, engaged in a big battle, and Hydaelyn won and banished Zodiark, and the Ascians want him back.
So they're really making Ascians of themselves.
They're making, yes. They do. I know. So it's a wonder there hasn't been a joke made in the game about that yet.
Get out of my podcast. No, I'm kidding. That warrants a boo. I'll take it.
So yeah. So Emmett Selk is one of these Ascians, and he's one of the, like, I guess their ranks are a little kind of nebulous. Even in Shadowbringers, it's not necessarily clear, like, if there's what kind of hierarchy there is in terms of is there one person in command or whatnot. But he's up there in the ranks. And the Ascians have always been mysterious. We didn't really know why they were doing what they were doing up until now. They were very hard to deal with and kill for most of the game. But we know we have to fight them, and despite not knowing a whole lot about their motivations or their intentions beyond just, like, chaos and darkness.
Sorry, I was gonna say, is this spoiling much for you, Peter?
I mean, I kind of spoiled myself. I kind of spoiled myself, honestly, so.
Okay, cool. So Emmett Selk, I'm sorry about that.
So Emmett Selk comes up at the end of Stormblood, and he arrives in Shadowbringers, and he apparently wants a truce, temporary truce at least, with the Warrior of Light and the Science of Seventh Dawn.
I don't buy it. Don't buy it at all.
Yeah, and nobody buys it. Like, everyone's like, we'll work with him because, it might be interesting to get their point of view and figure out what they're even doing here. But nobody in the group really fully trusts him. But he travels with you. He gives you some background about the Ascians, and he explains there's some major plot revelations with regards to the nature of the world, or the universe rather, in Final Fantasy XIV. That change your perspectives both on, like, the history of that universe, and also it really does a lot to help explain who the Ascians are and why they want what they want. And Emmett Selk in particular he's the reason why you even sort of get that glimpse into what the Ascians want. He's a great character, not just because he finally gives us some background and explains why things are where they are and what the Ascians want, but he himself is just a really interesting kind of, he's shady. He's never not shady. You're always kind of wary of him, but there's a very real sense with him that he's very, he wants something that was lost to them. Something that they lost, and he wants to get back. And you can tell from the way he talks about it how important it was to him. And you kind of can almost sympathize with what he wants and why he wants it. Even though the method by which he's going about to get what he wants is, horrible, and you absolutely have to stop him. But he does a great job of sort of humanizing himself and the Ascians as a whole, and making them at least a little bit more understandable and sympathetic. And I really think he's so amazing because he's a great, interesting kind of, character on his own right, but he's also amazing in that he finally opens that window and sheds some light on that we have really been searching for, the past couple of expansions.
He sounds very ardent, actually.
Yes. Yeah, he's like Arden is a perfect comparison. I immediately thought when he showed up at the end of Stormblood that he reminded me a lot of Arden in his mannerisms, in the very kind of mysterious kind of way he presents himself. He is literally the Arden of Final Fantasy XIV. And that is, if you know anything about my opinions about Final Fantasy XV, that is like the highest praise. I cannot praise him higher than by comparing him to Arden, who is the one shining ray of goodness that I like about Final Fantasy XV, because he is like one of the best Final Fantasy villains of all time.
Because of his almost redeeming qualities.
Amen.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
So
and makes me really want to play this more.
He's just a really good, he's I think one of the things that makes him a great character, and especially a great villain, is that you know you're going to have to deal with him at some point. Like he's walking around with you for most of the story, and he's telling you these he's telling you some background, some lore and whatnot, and he's for the time being not your enemy, but you know that you're going to have to deal with him. And
when is the turn going to happen, basically?
Yeah. And the thing that makes him great is that you know you have to do it, but you almost kind of don't want to. Like he's just charismatic and sympathetic enough that you kind of don't want to have to deal with him, even though you know you're going to have to. And that's we don't see that a whole lot with villains. A lot of times villains are just like not necessarily in one note, but they're very obviously evil or insane, and you have no compunctions whatsoever of dealing with them. And to have a character that you're kind of sad to think I'm probably gonna have to fight him at some point, and I don't know if one or both of us are gonna make it out of that. That's a good, I think, bar for a villain to meet, and Emmett Cell meets that quite handily.
You're almost hoping for the spare him option. Well, alternatively, it's funny because this entire segment, both the runner-up and the winner of this section were written up by you, being most familiar with both. Altina or Orion from The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 3, was our runner-up for this category, and does not look nearly as villainous as Emmett.
No, she is a cinnamon roll who must be protected.
And why is that?
Yes, good.
She's a really interesting character. So we first meet her in Cold Steel 2, and it's pretty obvious from when you meet her that she's not like a normal human being, and you learn pretty early on in Cold Steel 3 that she's an artificial person. So
she's
not
an anime
like,
girl. Of course she's...
Yeah. And she's very, especially in Cold Steel 2, she's very robotic. She's focused on her mission. Even her speech kind of feels like a little artificial. And she's clearly just, she's not even trying to be a human, a person. She's just trying to do what she was created to do. And she's still kind of in that mindset at the beginning of Cold Steel 3, but the beautiful, part of her character development throughout the game is her learning to be a person and to make friends and have a family. And by the end of the game, there's a really touching moment that she has where at the beginning of the game, she was asked a question about why she was there. Why are you here at this branch campus? Why do you want to be a part of this class? And she couldn't come up with an answer that was good. She kind of tried to get out of it, but she couldn't really come up with an answer. And by the end of the game, she has that answer, and she knows what that answer is, and it's just a really sweet sort of development for her to go from not knowing why she's there, why she wants to be there, to knowing why she's there and having something that she wants for herself, and not just because it's her orders or because it's why she was created. She's just such a great little character development, character growth there. And to see her, she becomes very protective and very, very close with her fellow classmates. And she has, I think, a really beautiful sort of almost like surrogate father-daughter relationship with Reen, especially by the end of the game, that she is so, what's the word I'm looking for?
Cinnamon roll?
She's a cinnamon roll. She is, by the end of the game, like, if you don't want to just, like, pinch her cheeks and give her a hug and, like, protect her from everything, I don't know. You don't have a soul, so.
Well, that is a delight. And I guess it's a reason why we had two characters from that, going into our next category, which is our best overall cast of 2019, which went to Fire Emblem Three Houses, which it's a stiff category, to be frank. But that the entire game is built on having a diverse and interesting cast of people to interact with, and eventually, as Peter said near the end, get S rank with. And then our runner-up being Cold Steel 3, it's very much a game in the same vein. So you have these two very strong casts that you interact with, I think, in somewhat similar ways. Although, is Cold Steel as relationship-based? Or is it more traditional RPG with that?
Oh, well, they are kind of similar in the sense that you have bonding points that you can use throughout the game, and you get little little cutscenes with people that you learn more about them and you deepen your relationship. So it is kind of similar in that respect.
And it was a good year for having a lot of interesting cast. I mean, even just even thinking in the strategy vein, like I'm sure Jono can agree with me that Wargroove has very compelling characters, even though they don't get a lot to go with, and you don't like. There's the interactions with them are brief, but they're very compelling. Like I found every character in that game pretty charming.
Yeah, well, that's the mark of good ensemble, is that everybody even if they don't have a whole lot to say, they still will stand out. Everyone has a moment where you go, oh, there's that person, there's that character, that sums them up.
And with how brief that game was, they did a good job of capturing that.
I completely and utterly agree. And from what I've heard of both Fire Emblem and Cold Steel 3, both games do that beautifully. It sounds like the characters that are there they feel like real people by the end of the game. They're developed so beautifully that you can pick out individual moments for, your not just your favorite character, but any character in the game. You can go, oh, that's a moment where they shined.
Yeah, no, Fire Emblem really excels in that too.
Yeah, I have to say, I haven't started playing it yet, and I needed to get on that. But I think I've looked into I've looked at the 3 different houses, and I've looked at the characters, and I've been agonizing over which house I'm going to pick first when I finally start the game, and I always I think I know which one I want to pick, but then I'm like, but all the kids in this other house also look really cool and fun, and I want to get to know them too, and I think that's not a bad problem to have, is to not know which one you want to start with because they all look so good.
Well, it's very clear that Mike had choices, that Mike Salvato had feelings, because he clearly thinks that Dimitri is worthless and you shouldn't pick him. So, because he got snubbed on the overall cast banner. He got every lead except Dimitri. So Blue Lions, GTFO.
Aww.
I kid. He's a very compelling character. But sorry, Peter, I interrupted you. You're going to say?
No, you're fine. I was going to say that the thing about Three Houses too is that you can't really make a wrong decision, because ultimately to get the full scope of the narrative, you do need to play all the routes. There are a few details, some backstory stuff that you only find out if you're close with certain characters, and that's a big part of what I like about the story, is that it makes it feel like a clash of ideals. Just getting to know the characters through their support conversations, that's something that I was really glad they improved upon, because my big issue with past Fire Emblem games is the support conversations were just fluff a lot of the time. You'll have 2 characters interact, and it'll be like, hello, character A, I like bread. And character B will be like, wow, I also like bread. And then they'll be like, cool, we should go eat bread together. And that will be And then their hearts go up, and there you go. But there was some really, it surprised me, some of the conversations that they would have. And
to be fair, I've had friendships that were built on less.
I'm sure, I'm hoping we all have.
I can't... we all have to have that one friend who's just like, hey, you want to eat? I bought an entire thing of donuts, and you're going to help me eat them.
Exactly. But yeah, you would have some conversations you would see, and they'd come out of it having improved their friendship, even though they had very divisive conversation about something. It's really well charged.
Yeah, you get legitimate character development in their support conversations, and aside from the fact that the interactions between some of the characters are really quite charming, you also get to find out more about their political situation. One of the characters is basically she's the next in line to a foreign nation, but she's there at the academy under the Empire because they're effectively holding her hostage. And her storyline is just fascinating, because she's got this weird admiration for her captors, even though, because she's been that's basically the life she's known her whole life.
It's
just a fascinating. It's very fascinating subject material that you don't see very often in these kinds of games.
Some very heavy Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, no kidding. She's great. She's one of my favorite characters. Yeah, I think the same goes. The sign of a good cast is when just about every character you can treat with the same level of care. And I think most, if not all, of the Fire Emblem Three Houses cast is just really exceptional.
And that's why I feel they won this, because that's a majority of the end game and the replay value is to go back and to develop different relationships, because like, as Caitlin's already agonizing who she's going to pick and how she's going to move on to the next one, and like the fact that you get the chance to play them all is very daunting, but it also it speaks highly of the entire cast that you want to get to know them all. You want to be involved in all of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And beyond just our delightful cinnamon roll, the rest of the cast of Trails of Cold Steel 3, have they all, as Class 7, been there from the get-go from 1 through to 3, so you've gotten to know them the whole time?
Well, the original Class 7 has, but the main focus of Cold Steel 3 is on new Class 7, and
okay.
With the exception of Altina, they're all new characters that have not appeared in a game before Cold Steel 3. So
you don't have that prehistory.
It's yes and no. Like, you still get to see old Class 7, and they do get, some moments for themselves as well, but most of the time is spent with new Class 7.
So you don't have that, I guess, that prehistory coming into the game of having gotten to know these characters and seen their arcs. So that speaks even more highly of this cast, that they endeared themselves so much to us, in most of them being just in this game.
Yeah. They do a great job of introducing these new characters and, integrating them so that they feel like a natural extension of the cast. And in some respects, they even get better development over the course of the game than the original Class 7 did in the first Cold Steel.
Oh, that's interesting. And you didn't come into this game feeling betrayed, like, you're not my usual X character. I preferred my other white mage kind of situation.
No, because the new characters are pretty useful at what they do, and you still get to play with the old Class 7 different members in each chapter, so it felt balanced. Like, I think the thing that they did the best about the game is they don't make it feel like one class is being prioritized at the expense of the other. Like, they all get some time to show up and develop and whatnot, and then you're left feeling like, well, it's not like we traded old Class 7 for new Class 7. We just kind of expanded Class 7 into old and new.
Well, that's good. That's very smart of them. Well, to that being said, this brings us to relatively our final moments of the this entire epic 3-part podcast, with the doling out of the overall Game of the Year of 2019 award. It's I don't know, it comes as no surprise considering how highly everyone has spoken of it, but it is interesting that this amazing MMORPG that is Final Fantasy XIV and its new expansion Shadowbringers was able to beat out so many standalone experiences for being just the best all-around RPG of the year. I mean, one need only listen to the numerous podcasts that I have asked Caitlin, so what's going on in Final Fantasy XIV, to find out why it's so great. And yeah, just your continued passion for it, Caitlin, is infectious, and everybody else around you who talks about it as well. Like, but it's not a hard game to speak up about, right? Like, you just look at it and you can see all of its virtues, and the fact that they've continued its level of quality is amazing from where it started, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, from 1.0 especially. Yeah, like, this is every time that we hear about another game that flops, like, I don't know, recent 2019 games like Anthem come to mind. I always
76
wonder.
Was great.
Yeah, of course.
I say nothing because I've said more than enough.
But I always wonder, like, I guess the cynic in me is like, that's it. It's just bad. It's not going to come back. But I think 14 is an example of how you can take something that was a huge flop when it first launched, and you can reforge it into something new that is not only better than it was before, but, is actually excels at its genre, and, puts even other games from, related genres to shame a little bit. So, I mean, like, I guess that means there's hope for stuff like Anthem and Fallout 76, maybe. But also, I feel like it's partly because of the team at Square Enix that Naoki Yoshida is leading, that is just dedicated to this game. And it's in large part due to Naoki Yoshida himself, who I am like... I love the dude, and I'm always very happy to hear about, him, his professional career within Square Enix, and he's absolutely getting the due that he deserves for, revitalizing this game that now has won for the second time here at RPGFan the overall Game of the Year award, and it's the first time that it's happened since I've been working here at the site. And I think I mentioned in the last episode, I was super happy that it won this, because there have been multiple years where, like, while there are other games that I enjoyed too, Final Fantasy XIV just kind of still stands out as like one of those best overall experiences. And it's kind of amazing to think that an MMO beat out a bunch of other single player RPGs, especially with lots of, heavy hitters coming out in 2019. So,
well, yeah, and our runner-up, The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 3, is no exception to that being a standalone end of, or almost an end. It's getting near the end of a trilogy, but like it's been this story arc that has been building up for so long, and I guess similarly 14 has too. But it's designed to be its own experience, and it's got a lot of awards in our overall different categories, right? And still, 14 brought it home with Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
And it's a series that I'm going to guess it's like we've gotten pretty much an annual major release from 14, haven't we now?
Well, there's the patch cycle is generally once every 3 months. The expansions are every 2 years.
Right. So we will likely be getting a different winner at the end of 2020, but 2021 we'll see if Final Fantasy XIV can reclaim its throne.
Yeah, we'll see what 6.0 brings.
Right? But that is reason enough to make myself and Jono both pine for time to play 14, is just watching it yet again take the win.
I'd be interested to see it's 6 years old now?
Yes.
I'd be curious
from Realm Reborn. Yes.
From Realm Reborn. I would be interested to see if they would. I mean, obviously it's a success. They keep putting incredible content out. I'd be interested to see if they at any point will put out a major not a patch, but just like a basically bring it up to the next level in terms of its
an
graphics.
Engine upgrade?
Yeah, just give it an engine upgrade as well as the usual patches. Because it seems like it has the legs to keep running for a lot longer than 6 years, and by the 2 years from now it'll be 8 years.
It's going to give WoW runs for its money for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's, the thing is, they still have to allow it to run on PC, and the question is going to be, like, at what point do they cut off? They will. I mean, the minimum requirements, generally, even in 14, are going to go up over time. But I don't know necessarily how much of a drastic update they would do to the engine. We'd have to see if that would be something that they would want to do in 14, or if they would want to wait and do an engine update, like a major overhaul engine update for like the successor to Final Fantasy 14, whichever number Final Fantasy that ends up being.
We know that Yoshida's working on something.
Yes.
And yeah, will that be
We'll
16
see.
as an MMORPGs, or 17, or 11.2? I don't know. Either way, like the testament of this game that it was basically like
Final Fantasy 11 too.
Yes, exactly. Ugh. Either way, it's a testament to this entire game, as you said, Caitlin, and it is a glimmer of hope for other failed games, so to speak. But just
I don't know about that. I think this is really, it's not just my opinions about Fallout 76 or Anthem. I mean, this was Final Fantasy is their crown jewel. It's a point of pride, and as I understand it, when they first released this game, it was not good. The fact that they put the amount of resources they did behind it to make it into what it is today is it's astounding. But I can't really imagine like Bethesda doing that, even though they probably should.
yeah, not everybody can get away with burning the house and keeping the foundation and just building on that foundation.
Oh yeah, BioWare says they're going to do something with Anthem, but I feel like it's too late.
Yeah, same with 76. They're releasing Wastelanders, which is going to be introducing NPCs into the game and make it more like a traditional single-player Fallout. But even then, I just think it's dead. I wish it wasn't, but I do. And I can't see, unless there was like a sincere, let's shut it all down, let's rebuild it from the ground up like they did with 14, I can't see it surviving. The fact that 14 did that and is as good as it is nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
It feels kind of like it's unprecedented. I don't know that I can think of an example of another game that failed so spectacularly upon its release and then rebranded itself, reworked itself into something, that's been as runaway successful, really, as Final Fantasy XIV has been.
I'm still holding out hope for Kingdoms of Amalur online.
Oh,
Someone will bring
boy.
that back. Please do.
Oh, boy. That brings back memories.
Right? It was just a good game, but then, that was just poor company management, not necessarily game management. At any rate, the runner-up being The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 3. I mean, the fact that was it Trails of Cold Steel 3 specifically, Caitlin, that motivated you to just be like, I'm going through this whole series this year to get up to speed for this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So the fact that this title alone, just being teased and then previews as we get more information and everything, was enough for you to go, I need to be where I need to be when that launches day one, and then you committed hardcore to ramping through it for us for review. It's a stellar game from the looks of it, from the amount of awards won here on our feature this year, and everyone who is on the team has spoken very highly of it, and I'm the same boat as you. Like, I want to go back through the whole series now just so I know what's going on when I get here.
Yeah, and it will be coming back to that tricky thing is like, should we recommend people play this game who haven't played other games in the series? But like, you can. I think having played, the previous games in the series, it'll be a richer experience. It won't necessarily be like you can't enjoy it without playing them, but I definitely think that I was able to. I picked up on things that I know I wouldn't have known about if I hadn't played the older games in the series, and it's just like, this is kind of where the threads kind of come together and start to intertwine a little bit from all the different previous arcs, and that alone in a long running series like that is kind of amazing. Like, to think that a game that's like this is game number 8 out of.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the 8th game out of right now currently 9 games released, but we're getting game number 10 in Japan this year. Like, what?
And they all
this
thread
does
together.
Not
is
happen.
incredible. Yeah, there's not many other series out there that do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's really neat to see the commitment to how that all works together from this entire series to getting where we are. So it's no wonder this game was a close runner-up.
I only regret that doing that meant that I wasn't able to play a bunch of other games that came out, when they came out, like Three Houses. Like, I would have started playing Three Houses day one if I wasn't in the middle of that series replay through. So
you had a lot more thoughts in this whole entire feature beyond just a couple games. Thanks, Trails.
Yeah. Thanks for being
so good.
Awesome.
Exactly.
And long.
Exactly. Well, that being said, both fantastic games, whatever your speed, right? Like, it's great that you have you have a stellar MMORPG to walk into if that's what you want, but most people who are playing 14 have been playing it for years. And alternatively, we have a great traditional RPG up there and a lot of other wonderful titles on the list. What I found interesting now that we've got our feature up and live is how much of the reader's choice was very much in tune with our staff decisions as well. Like, there was really not a single upset. The only various differences were maybe the winner and the runner-up were swapped in a few cases. And the only, I guess, thing was the readers weren't as much a fan of Wargroove as myself and Jono were, per se. But that's not to say anything bad, because Fell's Seal, Arbiter's Mark, was a fantastic looking game as well. So the fact that all 3 got a solid shout out is great. But overall, everyone who's listening, thank you so much for contributing to our Readers Rewards. Readers Rewards? Thank you so much for contributing to the Reader Awards and getting your voice out there, because it's good to know that we have our finger on the pulse, so to speak, and that you all have good taste. You can all keep reading. Keep coming back to the site. We'll keep you. Although, was it someone? There was one person, right, who voted for East 9 to be the overall game of the year.
Wait, really?
Yes, it's at the very end of our article, and as they said, be patient. There's always next year. And, it's a need to see that. Trails of Cold Steel was up there. Fire Emblem Hero 3 Houses was up there, and Disco Elysium, I think, was the second runner-up. I'm not sure if I think they tied. Or no, it was just close behind. It was a distant third. So not as many players of Final Fantasy XIV, I guess, but as far as standalone RPGs, all three of those are fantastic titles, as we've seen throughout this entire thing. To finally wrap up the podcast, everybody, I had social media kind of reach out just to kind of hear what people were playing throughout the year. We didn't get huge response, but I do want to still give a shout out to the people who did offer us some insight into what they were playing throughout the year. And one comes from Daniel Smith, who was telling us on Facebook that he picked up a bunch of cheap RPGs that were basically on special, I'm guessing over like Steam sales and such. He had Rogue Legacy, which John and I already said, fantastic game.
Ooh, so good.
Yeah, and Cave Story, and Child of Light, which is one I need to go back to as well. And he just found them all pleasantly surprising. And then it agrees that the Tales series has been solid in the last several years. And, well, Daniel Smith, you're going to get some more. So thanks so much for reaching out to us about that. And we also heard from Christopher Flores, who is going to be in good company with Caitlin by saying that Horizon Zero Dawn was their favorite game of 2019, I guess, their favorite discovery or thing that they played this past year.
Yes.
I started at the beginning of 2019, back when I was like, I have time, I can play this, and then more and more things started dogpiling on top, and I haven't been able to get back to it, but yeah, they thought it would be a contender definitely for a game of the year against Breath of the Wild. And they're both very similar in their ways, but different in a lot of meaningful ways as well, right?
It was my game of the year for 2017.
Yeah.
It was.
It's a fantastic game, and I'm just sad I haven't gotten back to it yet, but like, just the storytelling even is fantastic, not just the gameplay and how big and beautiful that world is. Just the storytelling is quite fantastic, and is the one thing that does sit it, I would say, above Zelda in many ways. But Zelda's exploration and how accessible the combat is and everything is probably what kind of nudges it out a bit in some ways, because it's definitely a lot more technical, Horizon Zero Dawn, I would say. And Michelle Venez gave her favorite thing to Luigi's Mansion 3, which I really want to play. Gwen got it for Christmas at her dad's house, and I keep poking at her, be like, bring it over. I want to play it. So I'm hoping once they've had their run of it and have gotten tired of it or whatever, she'll bring it over and we can all hunt some ghosts together. Because I definitely splurged just before the holidays and got us another pair of Joy-Cons, so now we can have some 4-player and between the three of us, 3-player experiences now. So that's one of the reasons I wanted it was for that game. So she got that from Santa Claus along with Link's Awakening. So we got some fun new games to play.
Ooh.
And
she must have been very nice then.
She's a pretty good kid. She's pretty cool. I mean, Jono already in episode part 1 of this whole feature was complimenting her taste in video games, so that alone warrants that she should get good games. But that being said, our final shout out I'm going to send off to Jacob Irving. Congratulations on your beautiful 10-pound, 9-ounce baby that you had. Who he named, everyone, I don't know if everyone was following on Facebook, but he named his baby Jack Edward Daniel Irving. Take a moment and think of those initials. Jack Edward Daniel Irving. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
It was definitely purposeful.
That is top tier.
Yeah. So, Jacob, thank you so much.
That is a Star Wars fan right there.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for listening and sharing that. That's delightful. Everybody, thank you for contributing what you could. And everybody else who didn't, give us some more thoughts. I love hearing from the readers and the listeners and everybody else who partakes of things at RPGFan. We would not be here for this long without any of you contributing to our success in one way or the other, right? So someone keeps the lights on. At any rate, everybody, thank you for toughing this feature out with me. This was a very marathon of podcasting.
It really
I
was.
haven't podcasted this much in a week in a while, and Caitlin, you're a trooper for doing 3 in the entire weekend.
I think this is the most I've done in a week in like ever.
Yeah, we'll pour one out for Tyler. We lost him to podcast fatigue.
I feel like at the beginning of this one, you should have like last time on Random Encounter.
Previously on a very special Random Encounter. Well, I kind of almost do that, but no, it's about the games. We're getting into it, and we're running long as it is. But we got through it, everybody. We got through all of our categories. We shared thoughts. We laughed. We probably didn't cry, but maybe we died a little inside about something winning over something else. I don't know. Were
Well,
there any
getting
great
to-
upsets for you, Peter, this year? Should there have been more wins for Kingdom Hearts? Because the fans were on your side when it came to Best Supporting Character. They thought Aqua was ace.
Oh yeah. Oh no. I'm pretty happy with the category choices. I'm not expecting everybody to be on my extremely specific wavelength.
Well, it was tough competition this year. I'm not gonna lie. Jono, any upsets for you? Anything that you felt like was snubbed and should have been on this list?
Not particularly. I think that 2019 was a fantastic year for video games, and I am extremely happy the year is over.
You're right. And now who knows what 2020 is going to dump on us, because we got a busy opening quarter coming up as it is. And March is going to be bananas.
God, the first half of this year is ridiculous. Especially if that rumor about Xenoblade Chronicles is true and it's coming out in May. Like, what?
It's already ridiculous, and just more keeps getting dumped on the pile.
And we haven't even hit E3 yet.
We don't necessarily know about, like, the second half of the year. What if the second half of the year is just as bad?
Right?
I mean, like, good, but bad.
Yeah, bad as far as choice paralysis. Was there any upsets for you, Caitlin? I mean, I feel like this entire awards, especially once we got you on, was very much catered to your niche.
Yeah, I don't think there's much for me to be complaining about, considering how much Final Fantasy XIV won and Cold Steel won a bunch of stuff too. Like, this is definitely not a repeat of 2015 or 2017, where I thought that the games that deserved the awards got swept under the rug. So, like, I'm happy.
You were the James Cameron of this year, just getting up continuously for Titanic. Just every single
speak
award.
on behalf of these developers.
Yes.
Jim Cameron, gotcha.
Well, it's funny too, because as much as you're complaining, Caitlin, about the fact that you didn't get to play as many of 2019's greatest hits, the fact is the few that you did were among some of the best games of the year. So it's a very fortunate problem to have.
I clearly picked the right games to actually play that were from 2019. Like, out of all the ones that I could have, I picked the right ones.
Yeah, you dodged some very big bullets. There's a reason I didn't nominate, Citizens of Space. Although it could have won for, like, my
I'm sorry.
most buggy game I ever played.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say something about caution. Enemies are approaching.
Oh, just wait till you listen to last episode. You were there. You know what happened.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over the sound of the enemy approaching.
Right? At any rate, yeah, there's definitely some big garbage fires. I mean, Donna, did you do any, did any of us do individual awards as well over in that category?
Yeah, I did one. Actually, I really narrowed it down. I didn't do a list. I just looked at, Wargroove. Because genuinely, that's my game of the year. It's not
best
the
Wargroove.
It's not the best game I've played this year. It's not the best reviewed game I've played this year, but it is the one that I enjoyed the most. And it's the one I had the most fun playing. And I think that's kind of what it boils down to for what I feel my personal game of the year should be.
Did you have, Fallout 76 as big as garbage fire?
That was last year. That was November 2018.
Oh, that was 2018, you're right.
That was the first game I ever reviewed for the site, and that was quite a... I was worried about that one.
Is that the hallmark of a really bad game, that it actually feels like it came out more recently than it did? Like,
it hasn't really had time to improve, unfortunately.
It's not just that it doesn't have time to improve, it's just that it keeps getting worse. And there's, just when you think that Bethesda can't possibly screw up again, it's what did I say? Was it last episode? It's like the theme from Benny Hill, except the theme from Benny Hill is run out and the game is still going.
It's like global warming.
Yeah. After a while, it's just stopped being funny.
Yeah, it's not
That's
anymore.
the thing. It's you can't punch up anymore. It's just going to get punched down.
No, I genuinely feel sorry for the people for the communities who play that game. Because as I understand it, there are some really amazing communities that play Fallout 76, and they are stuck with this game that just keeps getting worse and weirder and buggier and getting hacked, and it's really a shame. I wish they had a better game to play.
Well, all the power to them for making something out of it for themselves, I guess. But there are better games to play. We've got Final Fantasy XIV as our winner. We got Cold Steel 3 as our runner-up. We've got a whole list of fantastically written blurbs about all of these games in our entire 2019 Game of the Year award feature. So if you're hard up for something to play and you missed out on some of the gems from last year, check out the feature. It's got everything in it that you need to know to say, I'm going to like this, or nope, not for me, which is basically what this entire podcast series has been about. Some people have played them, some people haven't. Some people are Tyler, who admits he's good at nothing but traditional RPGs. He's not here to defend himself. I'm terrible. I'm kidding. I love you, Tyler.
Are you also a goose?
Honk?
Are you a terrible goose?
I am not, although Gwen says I should play that constantly.
Yes, you should.
I do want to. And then thankfully the goose gave our logo back by the end of this feature, so that's good.
That was the best thing about this holiday season, was the goose trying to steal our logo.
Untitled RPG fan site. That was us for a while. Or unlogoed RPG fan site. There we go. Stupid goose.
The goose will return.
I'm really curious actually to see where that goose crops up throughout the rest of the year. It'd be pretty great. At any rate, everybody, thank you for coming along on this wonderful ride that was this podcast, both everybody here with me on the panel and all the listeners who have trucked it out. Hope you enjoyed our expanded thoughts on this entire feature. As always, you can go check out Retro Encounter. They had their own end of the year wrap-up chit-chat, and you can find that through this 2019 Game of the Year feature. And all 3 episodes of this entire Random Encounter legacy of 178, 79, and 180.
The trilogy.
Exactly. Rhythm Encounter, still a thing. I mean, I would love to say that we are reviving it with talking about Music of the Year, but we are not. But we do have a Music of the Year feature that you can read about as well. And it's got a humongously amazing collection of music I was happy to write for and listen for. And we had a good year of music as well. Some great games, put out some fantastic soundtracks this year, and we had some great rearrangements and orchestrations and stuff. Was it Derek Heemsbergen just was tweeting about the fact that he went to go to the Undertale live concert, which would be amazing, and I really hope that tour is out here because that would blow Gwen's mind. So the fact that
that'd be pretty awesome.
The fact that we're getting more of this stuff every year is just fantastic. Like, it's getting into our homes so much easier as the geek generation grows older and has kids and starts having more say in the world, I guess. Either way, podcast at rpgfan.com if you want to email me more thoughts to share. We also have our RPGFan.com on our social media, and you can message us on Facebook. You can find us pretty much anywhere by searching RPGFan.com. And all your news, reviews, and more are over at the website proper. Thank you so much for listening. You 3, thank you so much for being here. Tyler, also thank you so much for being on this as well. And one final shout out to Zach for organizing this entire feature. Everybody, thank you so much. Have a good 2020. Woo!
Yay!
There it is.
Boop.
Awesome. This will be episode 180, part 3 of the Game of the Year Awards with Caitlin and Peter, and we've got Jono back. Okay, let's just do this. There, that was the intro. Sounded good, right?
That sounded great to me.
Right? It sells it.
This is laid back encounter.
Exactly.
We're on part 3. Who cares anymore?
It's been a weekend. Caitlin's recorded like 3 podcasts by now. We're all allowed to phone it in.